What was our greatest predator? It's a simple question. The answer feels obvious at first. You picture something from the ancient past, something with huge teeth and sharp claws. You imagine a small group of our ancestors huddled around a fire, listening to the sounds in the darkness. They were small, weak, and slow. The world was full of things that could eat them. And they did get eaten. A lot. For millions of years, our lineage was not at the top of the food chain. We were on the menu, we were prey, the evidence is there, etched into the bones of our ancestors. Puncture marks on the skull, a femur crunched in half. We have a deep instinctual fear of things that lurk in the night for a reason. It's a memory passed down through generations of survivors. So, let's start with the obvious candidates. Let's look at the animals that hunted us. The first thing that comes to mind is probably a big cat, a saber-toothed cat. The name itself is terrifying. Smilodon, the most famous of them, was a beast. It wasn't just a tiger with longer teeth, it was built differently, it was stocky, powerful, like a bear mixed with a lion. Its body was designed for ambush and overwhelming force. Those iconic canine teeth, sometimes 7 inches long, weren't for slicing. They were for stabbing. It would tackle its prey, pin it down with immense strength, and then deliver a precise, killing bite to the throat. It severed arteries and crushed windpipes. It was a specialist in killing large, thick-skinned animals. Did they hunt our ancestors? Almost certainly. We lived in the same places at the same time. We were slower than a horse and weaker than a bison. We would have looked like an easy meal. Imagine being an early human, maybe a Homo erectus, walking through tall grass. You wouldn't hear it coming. The first you'd know of it would be a crushing weight on your back. It's hard to imagine a more horrifying death. But it wasn't just the saber-toothed cats. There were other giant felines. The cave lion was larger than any lion alive today. It was a monster that roamed across Europe and Asia. Unlike Smilodon, it was likely a pursuit predator running down its prey. Our ancestors would have had to contend with these animals for shelter. A dry, safe cave was prime real estate. But it was also the perfect den for a cave lion. Finding a new home could mean walking into the jaws of the current resident. As fossil evidence backs this up. We find hominin bones in the same layers as these predators. Sometimes we find bones with their tooth marks on them. The famous Tong child, a fossil of a young Australopithecus africanus found in South Africa, tells a grim story. For years, scientists debated what killed this 3-year-old child. Then they looked closer at the puncture marks on its skull. They matched the talons of a large bird of prey, something like a modern crowned eagle. This child wasn't killed by a monster cat. It was snatched by a giant bird and carried away. It shows that the threats were everywhere. They came from the ground and from the sky. So the big cats were a serious problem. They were a constant danger. They picked off the slow, the sick, and the unlucky. They kept our numbers down. They forced us to be clever, to stay in groups, to find better ways to defend ourselves. Fear of them is likely burned into our DNA, but were they our greatest predator? A great predator is more than just a killer. A great predator is a force of evolution. It shapes you. It changes who you are over millennia. Let's consider another type of hunter. The pack hunter. A single large cat is a terrifying but straightforward threat. It's a physical challenge. A pack of wolves or hyenas is a different kind of problem. It's a strategic challenge. They don't rely on pure strength. They rely on teamwork, communication, and relentless pressure. They test your defenses. They look for a weakness. They can keep you surrounded for hours or even days, waiting for a mistake. Dire wolves were common in North America, living alongside early humans there. They were larger and more robust than modern gray wolves. A pack of them would have been an incredible force. Spotted hyenas, which our African ancestors had to deal with, are some of the most intelligent and socially complex carnivores on the planet. They are not just scavengers. They are powerful and efficient hunters. Their bone-crushing jaws could leave little evidence behind. The threat from a pack animal is psychological. It's the knowledge that they are out there watching. It's the understanding that they are coordinating just like you are. They are a mirror of your own social strengths. To survive them, you can't just be strong. You have to be organized. You need sentries. You need a plan. You need to communicate flawlessly within your own group. This kind of pressure likely had a huge impact on our social evolution. It rewarded cooperation. A single human is no match for a wolf pack, but a group of humans armed with spears and fire and a shared plan can turn the tables. The pack hunters forced us to become a better pack ourselves. They were a constant test of our group cohesion. If your group wasn't working well together, you were the ones who got picked off. There were other dangers, of course. Giant bears, like the short-faced bear, were colossal omnivores that would have competed with us for resources and certainly would not have passed up an easy meal. In the water, there were crocodiles. Our ancestors needed water to survive, but coming to the river's edge was a life or death gamble. All these animals were terrifying. They killed our ancestors in brutal ways. They were a significant filter, like weeding out those who were not smart enough, fast enough, or cooperative enough to survive. For millions of years, the story of humanity was the story of being prey. The fear they inspired, the caution they taught us, it's all part of our inheritance. But something happened. The balance of power started to shift. We developed better tools. We mastered fire. We built better shelters. Our brains grew larger. We got better at communicating and planning. Slowly, painstakingly, over countless generations, we went from being the hunted to being the hunter. We started taking down the very same animals that used to terrorize us. By the time the last ice age was ending, we were the planet's dominant force. The giant beasts, the megafauna, were disappearing. The saber-toothed cats, the cave lions, the dire wolves, they all vanished. Did we hunt them to extinction? Did the changing climate do them in? It was likely a combination of both. But the fact remains, our old predators were gone. We had won. So, does that mean we no longer had a great predator? Did we finally achieve a world without fear? A world where we were the undisputed masters? No, because the greatest predator was still out there. In fact, its most successful period was just beginning. The problem is, we've been looking in the wrong place. We've been looking for predators with claws and fangs. We've been thinking about other species, but humanity's greatest predator was never another species. To find it, we have to look at what kills in the biggest numbers. What has applied the most intense and consistent evolutionary pressure on us for the longest time? The saber-toothed cat killed individuals. It didn't wipe out whole tribes. The wolf pack could terrorize a settlement, but it couldn't follow you across a continent. These threats were local, they were physical. There are other forces that are far more powerful. Consider disease. The invisible predator, microbes, bacteria, viruses, they have killed more humans than all the wars and all the predators combined. For most of our history, a simple infection from a cut could be a death sentence. Plagues could sweep through populations, killing a third or even half of the people. The disease is a relentless evolutionary pressure. It's a constant arms race between our immune systems and the pathogens that want to use our bodies as a host. Our very biology has been sculpted by this war. The diversity of our immune system genes is a direct result of trying to stay one step ahead of the next great plague. When we started living in larger groups and then in cities, the problem got worse. A dense population is a perfect breeding ground for disease. When we domesticated animals, we exposed ourselves to a whole new world of pathogens that could make the jump from livestock to humans. Smallpox, measles, influenza, the bubonic plague. These are the true mass murderers of human history. So, is disease our greatest predator? It's a very strong candidate. It's invisible, it's everywhere, and it is brutally effective. It has certainly shaped our evolution in profound ways. But is it a predator? The word implies a contest. A predator hunts. It competes with you. A virus doesn't think. It doesn't strategize. It simply replicates. It's more like a force of nature, a biological wildfire. What about the environment itself? Climate change, ice ages, super volcanoes, droughts and floods. These forces have unquestionably shaped human history and evolution. The great ice ages forced our ancestors to adapt or die. They pushed us out of Africa and across the globe. They changed the landscape, the plants, and the animals we depended on. A prolonged drought could starve millions. A volcanic winter could blot out the sun and freeze the earth. These environmental pressures are immense. They are the ultimate filter for survival. If you can't handle the cold, you die. If you can't find a new source of food when the rains fail, you die. Our adaptability, our intelligence, our ability to create technology like clothing and shelters, these are all responses to the unforgiving pressure of the environment. But again, is the climate a predator? It's not personal. An ice age doesn't care about you. It's a set of conditions, not an adversary. It's the arena, not the opponent. This brings us to the real answer, the answer that is both the most obvious and the most difficult to accept. To find humanity's greatest predator, the single greatest source of danger, the most powerful force for our own evolution, we don't need to look at fossils or microbes. We need to look in the mirror. Humanity's greatest predator has always been other humans. This isn't a metaphor. It is a biological and historical reality. The moment we started to become successful, the moment we started to overcome the threat of other animals, we became our own biggest problem. The most dangerous thing an early human could encounter was not a lion or a bear. It was another human from a different group. Think about it from a competitive standpoint. A lion competes with you for food, but it eats different things. It needs a different kind of territory. It's a competitor, but an indirect one. Another human group, however, wants exactly what you want. They want the same patch of fertile land. They want the same cave for shelter. They want the same herd of deer. They want the same source of fresh water. Their needs are identical to yours. In a world of scarce resources, this makes them your ultimate competitor. This competition wasn't always violent, but the threat of violence was always there. For much of our history, we didn't live alone. We were surrounded by other hominid species. We shared the planet with Neanderthals in Europe, with Denisovans in Asia, with Homo erectus and others. We were all part of the same human family, but we were different branches. What happened to them? They are all gone. We are the last ones standing. Why? Maybe we were smarter. Well, maybe we were better at communicating and organizing. Maybe we were better at adapting to changing climates. Or maybe we just killed them. Maybe we outcompeted them for resources until they starved. Maybe we took their land and their food through direct conflict. The evidence is sparse, but the outcome is not. Wherever Homo sapiens spread, other hominin species eventually disappeared. We were the invasive species that took over the whole ecosystem. We were, in a very real sense, their predator. Once the other hominins were gone, that competitive pressure didn't just disappear. It turned inward. The conflict became Homo sapiens versus Homo sapiens, tribe versus tribe, group versus group. This is the central driving force of our recent evolution. The arms race that truly mattered wasn't against the speed of a gazelle or the strength of a bear. It was an arms race against the mind of another human. This is where our large brains come from. The social brain hypothesis argues that our intelligence didn't evolve primarily to make better stone tools. It evolved to deal with the immense complexity of social life, to cooperate, to compete, to form alliances, to detect cheaters, to persuade, to deceive, to understand the intentions of others. You need a lot of brain power to keep track of who is your friend, who is your enemy, who owes you a favor, and who holds a grudge. But this social intelligence has a dark side. The same skills you use to build a strong, cooperative society can be used to wage war more effectively. The greatest pressure to get smarter and more organized comes from the fact that the group over the next hill is also getting smarter and more organized. If they develop a better strategy for raiding, you have to develop a better strategy for defending. If they form a larger alliance, you have to form an even bigger one. This is a runaway evolutionary process. Unlike a lion, which evolves over very long timescales, human culture can evolve in a single generation. A new weapon, a new tactic, a new social structure can give one group a decisive advantage. This puts incredible pressure on everyone else to catch up or be wiped out. The warfare is not a modern invention. It is ancient. We find archaeological sites with evidence of massacres that are thousands of years old. Skeletons with spear points embedded in them, skulls crushed by clubs, entire villages wiped out. This wasn't just occasional squabbling. This was organized, lethal, group-on-group violence. This was predation. Language itself was likely shaped by this pressure. Yes, we use language to share information about the world. But more importantly, we use it to create a shared identity. We use stories and myths to define who is us and who is them. And for most of human history, the way you treated us was very different from the way you treated them. Us, you cooperated with. Them, you competed with, and if necessary, you killed. Think about the traits this kind of predator would select for. It would select for extreme and group loyalty. It would select for bravery and self-sacrifice for the sake of the group. It would also select for suspicion and hostility towards outsiders. It created the psychological foundation of tribalism that is still with us today. We are capable of incredible acts of altruism and kindness, but almost always directed at members of our own perceived group. And we are capable of shocking cruelty and violence, almost always directed at those we perceive as outsiders. This is the legacy of being our own greatest predator. The saber-toothed cat was a simple problem. It was pure fear. You see it, you run, you hide. The problem of another human is infinitely more complex. They look like you, they think like you. They can be your trading partner one day and the person trying to kill you in your sleep the next. You can't just run from them. You have to outthink them. You have to anticipate their motivations. You have to understand their motivations. This constant, complex, and lethal pressure is what forged modern humanity. It sharpened our minds. It bound us into larger and larger cooperative groups. It drove the development of our technology, our politics, and our morality. The threat posed by a cave lion is that it might eat you. The threat posed by another human group is that they might take your world. So, when we ask what humanity's greatest predator was, the answer is not an animal that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. It's a predator that is still here. It's a predator that we all carry a piece of inside of us. The incredible human capacity for cooperation evolved hand in hand with our incredible human capacity for conflict. They are two sides of the same coin, minted in an ancient world where the most dangerous thing you could ever meet was another person who was just as smart, just as desperate, and just as human as you were. We survived all the other monsters, but we were never able to defeat the one that stared back at us from across the valley.